What's up, everybody? In this episode of Man vs. Marriage, it is episode 2 of listener email. So, with that, we are very excited to bring you up to speed for what this is all about. Episode 2, listener email. We'll be right back. Welcome back to another episode of Man vs. Marriage. It is I, your humble servant, the Q Diggity Dog, in the Moran family studio with my lovely wife, the woman whom I chose, and I love her the most in the whole world out of any human being on planet Earth. Jeannie Moran. Jeannie, say what's up to a live crowd.
What's up?
To a live crowd. That's right. So we don't really do a practice, or we don't have a practice of doing the show live, but I felt like it was very important today. I want you all to learn a little bit more about what we do, especially the Facebook group, because we don't, like, I'll post stuff from time to time, but I don't necessarily do a lot of promotion on Facebook, unless you talk about how much I promoted my pain in that embarrassing game last night against Alabama and OU. Boomer Sooner rocked the Tide and embarrassed us. Anyway, before we get started, I want to make sure that you know how to contact us, and that is you can email myself, Quincy, at mvsmpodcast.com. There's a little ticker tape down at the screen, and that is there for your viewing pleasure, but also so that you know how to get in touch with us so you learn how we can help you. Also, make sure you go to quincymoran.com. That's where you can find our entire line of brands, not just apparel as it shows on the screen there, but it's all the things that we are doing to impact you, to impact humanity, impact culture in a positive way. If you go to when you go to quincymoran.com/apparel, you'll be able to buy some pretty cool stuff like that. Camera's reversed. That is the Man vs. Marriage, the flagship t-shirt. So go on and get you some of that, some other cool stuff. And this is how you support us. Number one, send us an email so that we know how that we can best support you. This podcast is about our journey, and then we utilize our experience to help you in your life and in your relationship. There is this particular shirt, which I love. It is Born Ready. Nope, I wasn't born ready.
Wrong.
I'm trying to do a promo on the shirt. So it's Born Ready. That's what you normally hear in life. When in all reality, you were not born ready. You are built ready based on what you do and how intentional you are. Or you can check out the Family Famous. Go get some of that. And one of my other signature shirts, the Notorious Hustlemania. I stole that from a couple of people, molded it together, made it into my very own. You can see the effects of the Hulkamania there as well. So please make sure you go support what we are doing by buying some of the swag and wearing it out into public. quincymoran.com/apparel. Okay. So if you are brand new to this, maybe you've been a Facebook friend of mine for a long time and you didn't know that we did a podcast. Shame on me. But if you're here now, great. And what I want to do is invite you to consider if you kind of belong as a part of this podcast or not. And so what I'll tell you, Gina and I have been married now 25 years. Legitimately 15 years ago, we found ourselves at a crossroads because life was kicking us in the man bag. And it was a tough time. We have 8 children who are all but adults now. But during that time, we had triplets, we had twins, we had diagnosis of autism. We also had our kids who were sexually molested by babysitters. We had financial duress. We were eating out of a food bank. We almost lost our home. And there were all kinds of medical emergencies going on in our life. And it was at that point where we kind of looked at ourselves at 10 years in and was like, right now we're in full survival mode and we are learning. We need to like reevaluate where we are and decide if we're going to be roommates or if we're actually going to make this marriage what we wanted it to be. True, honey?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I always do this part and then you're sitting there just looking all pretty while I'm talking. Maybe that's the best of what we do. Who knows? So, what we decided to do was get some help. And it came via Coach Rita, Coach Rita, and she invested her time and effort in both of us. And we were willing to do the work. And so we put the work in, and our relationship, our lives took a dramatic change for the better. They went in a new direction. And so if you can relate to any of those things that may be going on in your life now, it is not too late to redefine your path and to define the direction that you're going to go in and to be intentional with who you are, because Jeannie and I are living positive. We're just living proof that that's possible. And we're on year number 6 of this podcast now. So that is what the show is about if you're brand new. And we welcome you to the MVSM family and look forward to what we can do to help you move forward in what it is you want for your life. What do you want? And how can we help you build that? So with that being said, let's get started here at 7 minutes here into the program to talk about this episode 2 titled Emotional Pain and Wandering Eyes. And we had a 2-hour and 19-minute episode on email number 1, and that's okay. I mean, in the standing outside the frame email, you send us your story, and then Jeannie and I read it out loud, and we try to give you a perspective of standing outside of the framework of your life, so that you're not as emotionally attached to it. It's like a friend coming to you and telling you his or her problem, and all of a sudden you have some answers. So there was a lot, and we could have kept going in that episode because there's a lot. And whatever you hear in this episode, know this: we come from a place from our heart, number one, because we want you to reconcile. We want you to be able to experience reconciliation and restoration, like in your relationship, in your life. And so the only way we can do that is to give you an open discussion out loud with what we feel like will help you. And then you on your own will come up with some things. And so to set the stage for this, we had a wife who emailed us. And when you email us, husbands, you are Jack, and wife, you are Jill. And she emailed us because she is experiencing a lot of emotional pain because her husband is looking at women. And I'm not talking about based on what she's giving us. I'm not talking about like a side glance, admire, hey, things are going well for you. I'm talking about he is gawking at women.
Gawking at women. He's looking at porn.
And he's in the middle, or he's at a point where he's been addicted to porn for quite some time, and it's really causing her some emotional pain. But that's not the root cause. That's not the root of what is going on in their relationship. And typically, whatever's screaming the loudest in your relationship or in your life is not at the root of what is actually going on. It is a symptom. It's like the pain that you feel somewhere in your body. It's not the root cause. It is a symptom of what the root cause represents. And that's what we have to do. We have to be able to get into it and look at that and see what exactly is going on. So with that, we talked to her. We talked to her about what our thoughts were and what is going on. And so we've had some conversations back and forth via email. It is a lot to read, so I opted not to read
We're going to break it down into chunks.
the emails that follow, but we've pulled some things together. So here's the thing that I want to I've got some notes here, so forgive me when I'm looking away from the camera, but here's the goal. The goal from here on out is not to just you the listener, Jill and Jack, because I know you both listened to the initial program. The goal is not to continue to pile on you for where we think you're going wrong. We're going to identify a few other areas that we see, but the true goal here is to give you the tools based on the experience that we have over the last 15 years and encourage you to start to work them in. Will we be critical? Will we have our own opinions? Yes, we could be. We don't have the entire story. We're taking it all in via email, and we're doing our best. But the heart of this is to come from a place to help you. So we're really gonna leave this episode with some tools. And interestingly enough, we have these tools mapped out already. So they will be easy for me to give you. And then I can direct you to some episodes to help you both, even if you've already listened to them.
I think you need to throw out there a small disclaimer, because this is us reading somebody else's email and kind of hashing it out and tossing out questions to figure out what's at the root. But we aren't like experts in this. We just know what we've done and what's worked for us. So this is not like an everybody should, or you know what I'm saying? This is specific to their situation. So I don't want other listeners to be like, well, they said to do this, and this may not be your situation. So take it for what you're hearing, as this is someone else's situation that we are trying to dissect and help put back together.
Yeah, well, but in this, and I agree with you, this is our opinion only. We're not the PhDs.
I don't have alphabets after my name.
Nope. We're not the PhDs, but what we are is we are giving you our opinion. This is our take based on the information we have. And eventually we want to get on the phone with people. We want to be able to talk. We want to be able to provide context and to teach you in real time how to use these tools. And that's the thing, is that when Jeannie and I still have our own things that we are working through. We're not claiming to be perfect in everything. So we still work through our various challenges. We do them on this podcast in order to help.
You get to learn from our mistakes.
That's the thing. And look, I think out of the many great things that Coach Nick Saban has said, one of the things that's most valuable is he says, good people learn from their mistakes. Great people learn from other people's mistakes. And that's what we're trying to help you with. We're trying to present to you the value of what we've learned through our own mistakes, so that you can look at that and say, okay, I'm going to try a better way. I'm going to try to do this. I may fail, but I'm going to try to do this, because I want you to be as intentional as possible about your life and your relationship, because apathy creates a lot of disappointment, and then your life starts to feel meaningless. So here's what we're going to do. The first couple things, I want to talk to you, Jack, and I want to talk to you, Jill. Here's an overall synopsis of my opinion, and I'm going to give you a story that's very recent for me and my son, and I'll try to articulate that the best that I can. But here's what I'm pulling out of this, that you guys are both desperately trying to fix your life and your situation. The problem is you don't know how. That may seem obvious. The other piece of this is that you're desperate and you both want the same thing, but you are speaking completely different languages. Let me give you this example. Stick with me, please. My son has autism, and that can offer a lot of beauty, a lot of sweet innocence. It can offer a lot of joy. Conversely, it can offer a lot of pain It can offer a lot of loneliness. It can offer you as a parent the feeling of a lot of failure. And so, as a parent, what do you want for your own life? What do you want for your children's life? That's something that like you dream about. It's something that you want. You want good things. Like for my son, I wanted him to have a career as he was growing up. I wanted him to have find and have a meaningful relationship, a woman that he could connect with, that he could build a family with. These are things that I wanted for him. And he sees that in his life. And these are things that he wants. The challenge is that he lives in his disappointment for the majority of the day. How do I know? Because I listen to what comes out of his mouth. It's I don't have, I don't have, I don't have. And so it becomes really difficult because when you spiral in that I don't have mentality and you continue to focus on the things that you do not have in this life, you start to get bitter and you want to fix those things. Even with autism, you want to fix them because you see your siblings, you see your family members, and they have the things that you want, but you don't know how to get there. So it turns into anger. And the people that love you the most, the people that do all they can to help you and want to facilitate that growth in your life, they want to help usher you closer to those things, are the people that you generally take those things out on, the people you are closest to, because you're desperate to get what you want to make your heart feel full. So it's not necessarily that you want to take it out on the people closest to you. You just don't know another way. So your actions start to get hostile. And so for Hunter right now, when this stuff starts to boil over, there are just consequences that, every night he lays down, he goes to bed and he watches his television. That's what he does. But there are times where it's like the consequence is you're going to bed and there's no TV. Now, you can't just simply say, hey, go to your room and lay in your bed and there's no TV.
Not with autism.
At least not our
Not
brand.
ours.
So what do I have to do? I have to stand in front of his door in his room and make sure the light stays off and the TV's off while he shouts at me that I am the reason for all of his problems. It's hard for him to comprehend that there is a place in this life, son, where you can have the things that you want to a degree, but it takes you making different choices. And it's very hard to communicate that. You see, I want for him to play various sports. I want for him to have a girlfriend. I want for him to do all the things that make him happy. He wants to play various sports. He too wants a girlfriend to connect with. He too wants a job and wants to do the things that make him happy. But we're both so desperate because we don't know how to fix the problem. We don't know the actions to take in order to understand that we are both saying the same thing because we so badly both desire the same thing that now I've become, in those moments, his enemy, the source of his disappointment. I've become the one who wants to help him, the one who wants to facilitate that, the one who wants to love him through this, now becomes the object of his hostility. And he shouts, it's all your fault. My light is off. My TV's off. I don't have a girlfriend. I don't have my telephone. It's all your fault. And it was really tough because I'm standing there and I start to feel like a failure as a parent. I start to feel like a failure as a man. I start to feel like a failure as a human being. And I believe one of the calls of my life is to teach other men how to be famous in their own family. And I'm feeling anything but famous now. And it's like, if I could just open my heart and show you how badly I want these things for you that you want, I don't know how to help you. I don't know how to help you get there, son. And so it goes on, it goes on. And for 2.5 hours, I'm standing there listening to I am the problem. And there's also a peak inside of, I take some self-reflection and I go, wow, what must God feel like? Because in reality, we have the ability to make choices within our life to move our life forward. And we don't have things in our life because the choices that we're making. And rather than make those choices to the best of our ability, we turn around and we blame God for what's going on in our life. It's an odd parallel, I know, because there are less things that Hunter has choices of in his life, but the mission, my personal philosophy that I redeveloped 10, 15 years ago was focus on the things that you can affect. In a healthy manner, control what you can. The other things you can't do anything about. And so, why am I telling you this story? Because I believe that both of you, Jack and Jill, both of you so desperately want the same thing. But you are playing so much defense, so much self-defense, that you don't even know you're saying, this is what I want. From your actions to your mindset, your behaviors, your internal conversations, you both desperately want to connect. You both desperately want a marriage that is flourishing. You both desperately want intimacy that you can connect and is fulfilling. You want to feel like you matter. You want to feel like you're loved. You want to feel like you're a priority. But you're past the point of being able to understand to where you're speaking different languages. So now, no matter what you say, your spouse cannot understand you. And it is a treacherous place to be. Why? You guys are both damaged. Okay? Some of it you have done to each other. Some of it has been done to you. Whatever's been done, when the other person speaks, even when your spouse says something that's positive, it's now received through a filter and it's negative. And we're going to do our best to unpack all this. I'm trying to read my notes here. So that's the thing here too. You have so much personal animus going on in your relationship towards one another that when you try to move forward, when you try to make progress in the right direction that would bring you both together, you are tripping one another up. Matter of fact, you're tripping yourself as well. And you're both self-medicating. What do I mean? And we're going to talk about love languages here, which is a vital part of this conversation. You are trying to fulfill your own love languages, which in a sense, you want to be a healthy adult. We told you that in the last podcast. You want to be healthy, but you do not know the path to get there. And that too is something that we're going to do our best to address. You are both doing things, whether they are healthy or unhealthy, that make you feel value. But you are not doing things to present to your spouse that they are valued. And it's really hard. And the hard part is that we as emotional human beings, we're running that cycle every day in our own mind, in our own life, and it is running on repeat. So what are we going to do? How can we get to some practical tools to help you? That number one starts with you. And so my number one thing to you, which we'll draw all this out here in a little bit, and it's actually going to come, you're going to have something to work with soon enough. I'm going to try to get it to you guys very quickly, but it's called The Guide to a Great Marriage. We did this collection of episodes. We penciled out what we felt like was the best advice that we could give to a pre-married, newlyweds, somebody starting over. And that's what you guys are going to have to do if this is going to be successful. You've got to lay your weapons down. Matter of fact, you're going to have to make a decision. And I'm saying it that way on purpose. You're going to have to make a decision to lay your defenses down and start to rebuild, actually start to build some trust. Because there was broken trust before your marriage got started. There was broken trust in words and deeds. And so we're going to do our best to kind of go through that. So number one, you must be willing to reconcile completely. And in order to reconcile, you're going to have to forgive and agree to move forward. Once you reconcile, you're not holding the past against your spouse. That's reconciliation. It's like a biblical term. I'm going to put the Bible in here a little bit because the Bible talks about your sin. What does God do? He casts it as far as the east is from the west. Those two directions never really stop when you get into outer space, maybe at the end of a galaxy somewhere. But he casts them away, and then he does not bring them up to you again. And that can be incredibly difficult because there is a wound. You are operating from a wounded place. But what's the goal from a wound? For a wound, the goal is to get that wound to a scar. And what does the scar represent? Something you have overcome. There is a time during that wound healing that it gets scabby and uncomfortable. It's ugly. But eventually, the body continues to repair itself, and then you have new skin. It may not look like the rest of your skin, but it's there. It's a scar, and those scars can be a reminder of the things that you've overcome. Number two, you must be willing to rebuild trust within yourself because neither of you are someone that you yourself can count on. And you might say this, you might say, no, I'm good. I'm self-sufficient. I'm taking care of myself. I'm okay. I can be okay on my own. But the fact is, based on what we're reading, you do not have any trust within yourself that you are going to come through. And you may not know how to build that, but that is self-evident because you guys do not trust one another. And then the rest of that is about that I wrote. The rest of it is about being in defense mode all the time. And it's nearly impossible to communicate, to have great communication when you are in defense mode. Truly. So you want to start. You want to start with Jill telling us their love language, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So, Jill, to add for your wife, and this is because we had asked in the first episode, I am an acts of service and gift giving, and he is words of affirmation and physical touch. Okay. You have your own notes that go along with that. So please bring up said notes on your side
Yeah.
and talk to me. The floor is yours.
Well, it's hard because usually we start with telling people, you got to work on communication, and then we give them the tools to open conversation, um, rules of engagement, soft place to land, all of those different tools that go along with that. The problem for me in doing that in this situation is, I think we need to look at the fact that you both have love languages that are very different.
Mm-hmm.
Very different. Now, mine and Quincy's are identical. They're just flipped. My 1 and 2 is his 2 and 1. So it's very easy for us. It was not always that way. Contrary to popular opinion, your love languages do change given situations. I think they just kind of rotate.
The priority.
The priority changes. Now, once we got to a place where we're solid, our love languages do not change until circumstances force us to make adjustment. But in your situation, you're coming from acts of service and you're coming from gift giving. He's coming from needing words of affirmation and physical touch. Now, here's the thing. When you know what your love languages is, you know what his is. What you may not realize is that is how you interpret conversation. That is the filter that you are hearing things through when you're talking to somebody or they're talking to you, especially if you've been hurt and your love language is not being met. And what I mean by that is gift giving could be a positive or a negative. I may be giving you something that I think is a gift, and you may not. You might look at it and think, oh my God, what are you doing? The other thing is, it may not be a physical something that I'm giving you. My idea of a gift for Quincy would be to give him time to go do something he wants to do for himself. That is a gift for you to go spend time in self-care, hanging out with your brother, doing something you love, and I will take care of everything else here. You go do something. That is a gift. It's time. It's not me. It's not something that is necessarily tangible. It is something that you can use and do what you want with it. The flip side of that is I could give you a different type of gift and say, you get to stay with the kids and I'm going to go do something. You don't want that gift because you would like to go do something yourself. But what happens is I think people look at things as what they want rather than what they need. Your love language is act of service. Then why are you doing all the service? If you're doing all the chores and you're taking care of the kids and you're doing all the things around home and your love language is is acts of service, one, has this been established? What is an act of service to you? Now, I'm going to take this to a little twisted side for a second, but for some people, service, like myself, service is not a word that we use. And there's a reason. Service to me puts our intimate life into a very bad place mentally. It's something that we had to work through and get over because it was something that I was taught. I'm meant to, as a wife, I'm meant to service my husband. I am not a whore.
That is something that you've got to eventually work through so the word is not triggering.
And you and I have worked through that, but that's what I'm saying because she used it in one of her emails. That's why I'm bringing it up.
Gotcha.
For me personally, sex should never be a service, especially with my husband. That is never a service. That is a gift. That is something that we share. That is something that is sacred. That is not something that, because if it's a service, you could buy it anywhere. And that irritates me. That's a side note. But if your language is acts of service and you're upset because you're doing everything and he's doing nothing, has it ever been established what an act of service is to you? Now, for me personally, acts of service is I need help. If I have something that I need help with, like, for example, we have 8 children. We've always had 8 children. We've always had a busy house. We've always had never ending laundry, never ending dishes, and mountains of clothing and children. So for me, an act of service would be Quincy coming home and saying, I've got the kids for 30 minutes, go take your bath. Now, to some people, that doesn't seem like an act of service because he's giving me a gift. I get my free time. I get to go do. But for me, he was taking over my responsibility and giving me a breather so that I could go do something else. That is an act of service to me. The reason I'm saying that is because what is it to you? Is an act of service to you where they get up and they go mow the yard, or they go play with the kids, or maybe they go and do something around the house or a chore? What is your act of service? What is that? What does it look like?
I want to make this point too. Just let me jump in there real quick. I want to make this point that, and here's what, this is my own personal belief. So I can't say that Gary Chapman would endorse this particular point of view, but it, having a love language of acts of service, that means when someone does something for you, it makes you feel loved, makes you feel value, it makes you feel like you matter. Conversely, when those things aren't done, it makes you feel the opposite in a negative way. So you're still getting a gift, or excuse me, it's still an act. It's an inaction that now is harming you. It now feels like an attack. It feels, and I don't have any better, there's no better way for me to articulate it. If I come up with something, or when I do, I'll put it out there. But
you understand what I'm saying? Now that you've established that, this is the filter that you're hearing or seeing everything out of, because in order for Jill to feel loved, she needs acts of service. Okay, let's just for basic conversations purposes. If that means I need you to help take care of chores around the house and the children.
get that microphone closer to you,
I
please.
can't. It keeps falling over here.
Okay,
and
scoot up.
we don't have the ability to fix it right now. Anyway, if that's her version of acts of service, is helping with the kids, helping with lunches, doing the chores, basic needs around the home or for the family. If he's not doing those things, it makes her feel like he doesn't care
And that she
and
doesn't
she
matter.
doesn't matter. Okay, now in everything that he does from this point forward, be it good or bad, because that tank is not filled and that hurt is there, that filter is what you are seeing everything through.
Correct.
So even when something good happens, you're not going to see it as good because your immediate response is, well, but what about? And now you've just deflected everything. Even though you could have had, so Quincy and I talked about this earlier, and we put it in terms of sports. If you're a football team, God help us. I know we sucked yesterday. I'm really sorry to bring that up. But you can't expect to get to a championship and win it all until you beat each individual game. And in order to get to those games and win, you have got to make every single practice count. So that means if you two are arguing, and let's say he decides to do the dishes one night, but he only does it one night and he doesn't do it again. It's still an act of service. It was still something that he tried. Maybe it's not something that's become a routine yet, but it's happened. And then the next night, you're mad because he doesn't do it again. And then the next night, you're mad because he doesn't do it again. Okay, you have to look at this as practice. Practice is where we learn. These are things that we have to do repetitively, intentionally. We have to actually put in the effort, but you also have to consider how you're coaching that person. Here's where the flip comes. His love language is words of affirmation and physical touch. Okay, Quincy and I went through this. This was a very simple switch for me. As soon as Rita put it in perspective for me, I was able to immediately change how I approached things. But it took somebody pointing it out. Now, somebody who needs words of affirmation generally have felt beat down, less than, not enough, struggled with either, in Quincy's case, it was his weight, it was his ability to bring in income to the house, it was not being able to prioritize time. These were all things that he struggled with because he wanted to give to everybody and just couldn't seem to give enough in all areas, in which he turned to food because he felt like crap.
I could get enough of something, I guess.
That's what I'm saying. It's so the addiction kind of buried the depression and just actually piled on top of it in the end. When I learned that Quincy sees and hears everything out of a filter of affirmation at the time, anytime that I said, we don't have enough money, I just affirmed to him that he is not enough, he's not making enough income, and he's not doing enough to supply for me and my family. If I said, if I mentioned, you've put on a little bit of weight lately, I just affirmed to him that he's getting bigger. He's not taking care of himself. He's not meeting his goals. Even though I'm doing it because it's a necessary conversation in the moment, it was how I brought it about or how it was said and how it was interpreted. I was not meaning to take a dig at you and tell you you're not good enough and you're not supplying enough. What I was trying to say was we're missing some things. We need to figure out together, how are we going to work this out, rather than we don't have, and knowing you're the provider, it's your responsibility. The way it was being presented was harming you, as opposed to, I Rita put it as kind of a compliment sandwich, I guess, telling you, I appreciate what you're doing. I know you're working your butt off. I really understand the struggle you're in. We have the situation and we need to figure out together how we're going to fix this. Since I can't work outside of the home, I'm asking you, what do you think we can do? And then on the backside of that is, I appreciate you helping me figure this out. Now, this is a generalized conversation, obviously, because there are multiple places you could have an issue in this conversation. But that was just one of the areas that Rita used it for me to make it simpler for me to understand what I was doing and how I was saying it.
Well, as you start, and I agree with what you're talking about there. As you start the process, you start to understand where you're projecting out of fear.
Mhm.
And that was something for Jeannie, which was if the cabinets weren't full, she started to freak out. And so she would vocalize that. And when she would vocalize that, I would take that as an assault on me
Mhm.
that I'm not good enough and I'm not making enough money. Who makes enough money for 8 kids? I don't. Elon? Good, Elon, you did it. But for
Share.
us,
Just saying.
no, we don't need him to share. It's good. But these are people, we were people who didn't trust each other because
I
we
don't trust myself. I still struggle with not trusting myself.
well, that's another key factor that we talked about earlier, but we have developed a level of trust where we give one another permission to say things directly. And you will take direct feedback or constructive criticism from people you trust. You will not take it from people you don't trust. And we didn't trust each other at that point because we were simultaneously letting each other down, even though we were both doing what we thought we needed to do to help our relationship and our family to move forward.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the key here. They have damaged each other. Some of the acts that happened before this marriage, infidelity, that is an act of service with a negative return.
Mm-hmm.
And it has damaged her trust. It has damaged her heart. It has damaged her emotions. So now she sees it all out of, I'm not enough.
Okay, so now let's flip the script for a second. In the previous email, she had stated that she had made a comment about his weight and his size, and that she felt ashamed of him and walked away from him in public. And then that is where, now I'm not saying it's right, wrong, or indifferent. I'm saying look at it from the filter's point perspective. This is someone who needs to be affirmed and believe that this person loves them for who they are, irregardless. And then to make that kind of remark and to walk away embarrassed. Now, keep in mind, I only say this because I know what you went through, and this is what you and I have discussed. When Quincy was bigger, even to this day, there are moments that he just does not feel comfortable in his own skin.
Mhm.
But it's not something that in the beginning you do now, but in the beginning, you didn't discuss that with people. That was something that you internalized and kept to yourself because it wasn't, you don't know how to tell people, I'm not confident. I look confident. I got a great personality. Anybody who met you, even at almost 400 pounds, you were the life of the party. You were the guy everybody wanted to hang out with, everybody wanted to talk to, everybody wanted to have a good time with. Why? Because you have a great personality. You attract people with how much you care and how much your personality is out there and you want to talk to people. You're just a bubbly person. Anyway, but if I were to tell you the person who means the most, who you didn't think was even in your league when we got married, and that's not me, that's him. You can ask him. I'm not being conceited, I promise. That was how you saw things. Like, I don't know how I got her. And if I was to turn around and tell you, I don't want to be seen with you in public the way you look right now, you need to lose some weight, that would have absolutely crushed you.
I think we got to clarify that because I think she walked away embarrassed not because of his weight, but because of how he was gawking at women. So you might be
No,
conflating those.
there's two different emails.
Okay.
That email was her making the conversation and walking away from him. And then that's when the infidelity happened. And that's when the addiction became more prominent. Now, I am not blaming her for this. What I'm trying to address is, if I am a person who needs to be affirmed in who I am, and I am a person who needs to feel loved, I feel loved by appreciation and by you encouraging me and talking to me about certain things. And that person crushes that unintentionally. I don't know how it was said. I wasn't there for the conversation. I'm going based off of an email that I have sitting in front of me. I have not talked to these people. I don't know his side. I would love to hear his side. Jill, if you can get Jack to listen, email me. If you don't want to talk to Quincy, email me. I want to know what's going on because I've been her on the side of having the bigger husband. I understand that side, but I have also been him because I haven't had my love languages met and we were looking for other things to fill.
Mm-hmm.
Did not have the addiction. That addiction. I drank alcohol. There was a difference.
Well, pause right there because I want to point out the point that you're making and then give you a deeper look at it. Words of affirmation, they build you. Words that are not affirming, they tear you down.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the majority of the words that are not affirming come from within.
Agreed.
And that right there, I'm not saying that what she did is not a factor because it is. It adds to the onslaught of what he has done and affirms.
Well,
let me finish.
Go ahead.
And affirms what he knew already. Now, for her, she's doing all the work. She's doing all the acts at home. And so this is her way of self-medicating to get some needs met. And the more she does, the deeper it drives her into this hole away from him because he's not doing what's necessary to meet her need.
Mm-hmm. So that's what I'm saying. It's not necessarily that what she did caused it. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying,
I'm not saying
I know,
you're saying
I know.
that.
What I'm saying is he's already internally beating himself up,
Mm-hmm.
and she affirmed it for him. That for him is broken trust because I thought you loved me as I am. I thought that this was the whole thing, that you didn't see what I see about me. You see something different. You see me unconditionally. When someone's already dug a hole and they're already kind of beating themselves up, I can use myself as an example, and it's kind of is, but isn't livable for everybody or relatable for everybody. When I wrote my first book, the reviews, I was told stay away from them. My dumbass, I went and looked at them. So I was good until I got the very first one that tore me down, and they picked on the things that were my personal fret inside of, I hope nobody goes after this. I hope nobody sees this and starts tearing it apart. I hope that this is good enough. And one person found those things and it spun me for about 3 days. One person's opinion. I don't know this person. They are not important in my life. They are not somebody that I spend time with, but it just piled onto my own fear and my own issues with myself and what I was doing. That's what I'm trying to say. It's not necessarily her fault. It's that what you did and what you said just broke something for him and affirmed to him that I'm not enough. Okay. So now put that together with where we are now. This
Mhm.
happened beginning of the marriage. Put that together with where we are now. Anything that you say, even though you've apologized and you've owned it, he has not reconciled with himself on being worthy, being enough, getting healthy. He hasn't done these things. He's still in that same rut. Why? Because that is his crutch. Food. Addictions don't just come, they don't just show up. You have to build them. This is something that's been going on for a while. So I'm looking at it from that perspective, which shows me your love language is acts of service, but you're doing everything because you say he's not. Then what do you need him for? If you are filling your own love bucket, what do you need him for? What's he supposed to do? I don't have an answer for that because if he did anything, would it be right? Would it be enough? Does it have to be? How many times does it have to be? That's why I'm saying you haven't lined out what does it look like? What is your need specifically? What do you need them to do? For me, it's quality time. Quincy's version of quality time was to take me to a movie, get me out of the house, go spend a couple hours together, and have a good time. My version of quality time is take me out, have conversation. Let's go do something. Let's go experience something together. I didn't want to just sit and watch people acting on a movie for 2 hours and then go home. There's no connection there for me.
Yeah, and for me, I totally created the plan from my own perception of what I would want if I was her, which my job requires me to talk all day long. And so did, hers required her to chase people around all
I
day
had
and
little
get
people. I didn't have adult conversation. I
and
needed
so
grown-ups.
I'm like, okay, I'd want to get out of the house, I'd want to decompress, and I'd want to just go watch a movie so I don't have to think, I can just enjoy some entertainment. It was the right it was the right it was the right thought, it was the poor execution.
Mhm.
Because what I should have said is, okay, what does quality time look like for you? And she could say, well, it looks like this for me. How did we find this out? Because I wanted an attaboy. And I said, well, how's it going? I'm paraphrasing. And she goes, it's fine, I guess. All we do is go to the movies. And I got into my feelings there. And it's like, but I
I
had,
affirmed you weren't doing it right.
well, and I had enough training from Coach Rita to say, okay, well, what does that look like for you? And you're like, and this is all paraphrasing based on memory. It's like,
15 years ago. It's been a while.
I want to go to dinner. I want to sit and I want to talk and I want, to share my day and I want to have adult conversation. And I thought to myself, why didn't I think of that sooner? I thought I was doing what was right. I had the right intention. I had poor execution. And you can have the right intention and still be doing it wrong.
Mhm.
And that is present in this relationship, Jack and Jill. Jill, you are doing your best to prod him into like rising to the occasion. Do this for me. Do this for our family. And every man inside, believe it or not, does want to be a hero. But the power of your words are stronger right now. The condemning words are stronger than his will to rise, mainly because he does not trust himself in his ability to do this. He does not believe that he can actually do this. And so that's where you get these behaviors of, I don't know, like he hasn't said this. I don't know how many times I can tell you this. I want I want you. I want us to be together. Well, all of your actions, especially to an acts of service human being, don't represent that you want that. And a lot of that is present in how sentimental he gets and how he addresses like after people pass away, because she said he's indifferent about people while they're alive, but when they pass away, he wants to honor them. He wants to honor their memory. He becomes very connected emotionally to the thought of who they were, and animals. Well, the thought of who they were, you tend to remember, if you want to, the great parts about them. And what were the great parts? They accepted me for X, Y, and Z.
Mm-hmm.
Your animals, you can have a very bad interaction with your animal, and the next time you walk into the room, they're like, "Hey!" There's that funny joke that's gone around for years, which is, you know, you want to. I don't know how it goes. Anyway, it's like lock. You want to know what true love is? Lock your wife in the trunk of the car for an hour, and then lock your dog in the trunk of a car for an hour. And then when you open the trunk, who's going to be happy to see you? It's going to be your dog. I can't remember the premise of that joke, but it's funny because your dog would be like, "Yo, what's up?" So why do I say that? Because there comes a point where you are fed up with who you are. And the fact is that who you are is not who you have to be. You can choose who you want to be. That doesn't mean that you're going to have the movie-esque happy ending where everything all works out. But what it does mean is that you focus on the things that you can affect, and you start to build resiliency. And I took this process where it's like, I heard a podcast and it's like, what would I want my wife and kids to say about me? I didn't even know that words of affirmation were one of my top love languages. But I was like, what would I want my wife and those close to me? What would I want them to say about me? I lined it out. And then I came back to now and I said, is the way I'm living my life and the actions I'm taking going to get me to that man? And it was easy to say, no, it's not. So, in spite of what you do, I have a personal responsibility to get healthy on the inside. Now, I had great people to influence my life. I had great books that I read to help me get there. I had the game changer. I had my faith in Jesus Christ that helped me. It helped me know that redefining and transforming yourself is absolutely possible in the physical and in the supernatural, so to speak. So, if I didn't learn how to become someone I could count on, how could I count on you? Authentically, how could I count on you?
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to come face to face with myself and say, I'm not I'm not living. I can say I want all these things, but I'm not living my life in a way or in a fashion to achieve these things. Very simple. And I've said this to people before, and I've probably said it on this podcast. You're into gardening now.
Mm-hmm.
If you go out and you plant tomatoes, would you be offended if tomatoes grew?
No. Shoot, I'd be ecstatic if I could get that to work.
Yeah. So if you plant tomatoes, but you expect peppers, you're fooling yourself. What does that even mean? That means if you say you want X, Y, and Z, but you're not planting those seeds and watering them, you're not going to get what you want. you are growing something else. And let me tell you, it is really easy to grow weeds. You have to do nothing for the weeds to grow. It's the time, the effort, and the energy and the action that you have to put into a nice lawn to curate the grass to grow. And that is the same in life. So, did I want to become all those things that I would want my family, those that are very close to me? Yes. And then I decided, well, what kind of freaking man do I want to be? What's my standard in life? And I had to identify those things. And I said, okay, from now on, I'm going to be the gatekeeper. I'm going to decide what my attitude is. And sometimes that feels impossible. When you hurt me, honey, when you hurt me, it feels almost impossible at times to be the gatekeeper of my emotions because it damages me. And that is the same here. Both people are damaged. They want the same thing. They do not know how to communicate to get there. So, roll it all back. Acts of service, giving gifts. What does that look like for you, Jill? And it's not a situation where you do these things for your husband because it's what will make you feel love. It's the things that he will do for you that make you feel like you matter. Because we all want to feel like we matter. And then for you, Jack, you place value based on what we understand. You place value in going to a job and earning money to provide for your home. That matters. Obviously, you feel value in that. And we do what we see. So maybe that is what your dad did for your family, and that's as far as it went, because that's my obligation. But the fact is that's not far enough. Because there are things, there are actions that you can take as you rebuild your own personal, what I call internal credibility. And it doesn't have to be comfortable for you. It doesn't have to be convenient for you. And because you bring home a paycheck doesn't mean your wife feels like she's loved and that she matters. There are things that she needs to reconcile and you need to reconcile together. You need to forgive. You need to identify how you can move on. And then there's another great biblical term, which I don't know your faith and if you even have, faith in some kind of religion or something, but there's something that's called grace, which is, okay, we're going to try this. This is our intention. Our motivation is this. If and when I fail, please don't go all the way back to the beginning and hold me accountable to who I was and say, see, I knew you couldn't do it. It is, as long as it's not a consistent pattern, we must have grace for one another. We must have a little bit of mercy because we're not going to be perfect at this. We're not. My goal for a long time was perfection, and I failed all the time. And so I would not do things because I was afraid to not get it perfect. I had to redefine that and say perfection is not the standard. There are friends of mine and my mother who even said, there was one being on the earth that was perfect and they killed him. What makes you think you're above that? So I had to adjust and say excellence is the standard. That's the way I'm going to live my life perfectly. Now I'm ridiculed for that. I'm ridiculed by people who don't live that standard and attack me for it. But that's not my business. My business is to live my standard. But I don't have a standard if I don't create a standard. So I have to have a standard. With that, it's important that you articulate what this looks like to you. Now, early on in our relationship, we had a practice that Coach Rita taught us, which was airing the grievances or airing your dirty
Ooh, you
laundry.
gotta be careful with that one right now.
You still need to know that that's there. But I really want you guys to learn about acts of service, learn about gift giving, learn about physical touch, learn about words of affirmation. The more you know and understand about them, the more aware you will be of how your actions, positive or negative, affect your spouse. And that is very important because now you're making a choice. Now that you're aware of it, now you're making a choice for what that looks like. Okay, let's go to the next part of this email.
Where are you going? Because I think we need to skip down to something real quick.
I already put something up. You could just commentate real quick. This is from Jill. He said, I had an abundance of attention from the opposite sex. I have not, and I like it and basically want it. I don't.
He was saying that she gets a lot of attention, that she likes it and she wants it, and then she gets mad when he was getting attention, and she thought it was silly when people would say silly things to him, and like that they wanted his attention or whatnot. And so um I'm paraphrasing because part of that she said not to discuss because it was from something else. um anyway, here's the thing though, and this was what I took from that, because one, if somebody flirted with my husband in front of me, I would not laugh and think you were being silly. That would not be me. I can tolerate people looking at you, and I can tolerate people um acting a certain way, or like, admiring you. I understand that. I view my husband as a good-looking guy. You don't see yourself the way I see you, so I understand that. But if people were flirting with you in front of me, no ma'am. There is no way I would look at you and it's funny to me. No ma'am. This is not funny to me, and I would have something to say. And I'm not saying that I would be rude or hurtful to somebody, but I would make a comment about how, yes, he is very funny. We have great conversations all the time. My husband and I have a great conversation all the time. One, if you accept it, that's on you. Two, if he accepts it, that's on him. Outside of that, though, go back to words of affirmation. If he is still stuck on not being good enough and beating himself up and how he looks and how he does things, and somebody pays him attention and it is the opposite attention of what you're giving him, you're telling him all the things he's not doing, all the negatives that he's not doing, all the things that he does wrong, all the things he does that hurt you. And I'm not saying you're wrong in telling him these things. It's how it's delivered. Of course, he is going to take the attention from other people who tell him how sweet he is and how funny he is and all of it. Why? Because it feeds him. It's an affirmation. It makes him feel good. Even if it's not accurate and they're just doing it, to be, well, I'm not going to say that because I have an issue with females in certain behaviors, but I'm saying he's feeding off of it because they're feeding into what he needs. He needs to be told that he's funny, that he's appreciated, that he's handsome, that he's sweet. He needs those things.
So let me put that part in the context, because I think it was the way it was read is I just didn't understand the context. So
Just be careful of the part where it says "do not mention," please.
no, I'm not. So here's what I'll say. It says, he has said, this is him saying this to her, you've had an abundance of attention from the opposite sex. I have not, and I like it, and basically want it. So that's him saying he likes getting attention from the opposite sex, and he wants it. So this is her right here, summing it up. He'd rather have attention from other women than me. In fact, if I did feel secure, and ultimately desired by him with trust and a solid foundation, or even before his deceit, I would find it funny if other women tried flirting with him and build him up more. And she's trying to make a joke here. Is like, I'm not beyond stabbing some chick for trying to take my man. Like, she's saying that as a jest or as a mindset. So what she's really saying is that she could be present with women flirting with him if they were healthy and connected in such a way where it's like she wouldn't be intimidated by it. It wouldn't hurt her because it wouldn't feel like he's choosing other women's attention over
Agreed.
hers.
But go back to the beginning of this. He would rather have attention of other women than you. Think about that statement. Think about that statement. He would rather have the attention of these other women than me. Why? Because he's taking everything that is said out of the filter that's in place. In his mind, and I am paraphrasing this because I don't know what he's thinking. I can only look at this from what I'm seeing and what you're telling me. If I'm not feeling like you value me, if I'm feeling like you're constantly on me about things that I do wrong, things that I'm not healthy, you wish I would lose weight, you wish I would stop doing this, you wish I would stop doing that. And then when I tell you you don't respect me, you don't appreciate me, and your response is, why would I respect you when you don't do X, Y, and Z? Of course, he wants attention from other people. He's looking to fill that tank because you're not doing it. And I'm not saying it's right, wrong, or indifferent. I'm just pointing out this is why to him it's acceptable because it's filling him. It's filling a tank that is not being filled by the person it should be being filled by. Flip side of this, there's another conversation that we had on here. Um it's this is going to be
Pause that for a second, because what you're telling me, what you're telling us is that he's anchored. Like, he's anchored in a place, and the place he's anchored in this one particular area, which there could be many, but that this affects him getting compliments from his wife or wanting her attention. This is our opinion,
Mhm.
but in one of the original emails, it was like she told him that his weight was an issue.
She told him flat out she doesn't respect him.
Well, she told him that his weight was an issue and that she didn't want to, she didn't feel attracted to him. If he was fine with it, then he was okay to live his life that way. But
But okay, so
am I accurate there?
yes, but okay, so let me ask you, because we have a very intimate and healthy sex life. We've developed this over time and we have discussed what we want sexually and intimately. Okay? So we know how many days a week, we know how much time, we know all the parameters are set in place. Okay? And if I as your wife said to you, at the weight you're at right now, and I know you've been working, but at the weight you're at right now, the extra skin from your surgeries and stuff, I'm just not attracted to you. But if you're okay with it and you feel okay with it, that's fine. Where would our sex life be in that moment?
Well, I can say this, that our sex life took a hit, and it was already on the rocks early on, because you did at some point have to tell me that I was such a big human being that it was painful
But
at
that's a
times.
different conversation.
I know. I'm gonna help you. I'm gonna help you bring that point home.
That's why I'm saying there's a difference in how this stuff is delivered. If I was to say I wasn't physically attracted to you versus your weight it's hurting me, it's making it difficult for us to have that connection. Those are two very different conversations.
No, I agree with you. I agree with you. But I still felt utterly rejected,
Mhm.
and that made my situation worse.
Mhm.
Now, ultimately, I had to take responsibility. I actually had to take a step back and go, yeah, I can imagine it. You're 5'4" and about 120 pounds. I'm 5'10" and about 380 pounds. dangerous. But I felt rejected.
Mhm.
Even though it was the truth, I felt rejected because I wouldn't want to hurt you. But now it's like my body is now no longer good enough for you, which
But
I
it
that I'm going through.
Mhm.
I'm going through what how I took it to correlate it to where this conversation is happening. When she told him that, ultimately, she rejected him.
Mhm.
And as a person with words of affirmation, that does not go away.
Mhm.
Each time you see yourself in the mirror, each time you try to put clothes on, each time you try to tie your shoes, it is reaffirming that what she said is true, that what you are is not good enough, you're not attractive enough for her. And the fact is that it could have been out of a good place, which is like, and I think she alluded to this, which is get healthy for your wife and your kids. We want to matter enough for you to get healthy.
Okay, but again, looking at it through words of affirmation,
Mm-hmm.
telling someone, why aren't we enough for you? Why can't you get healthy? Why can't you? That's how it's being said according to the email. You are continuing to affirm that you are not doing it right. You were not taking care of yourself. You were not doing enough. And it's just dumping. It's continually dumping into that mindset. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up is because one of the other conversations she wrote, this is from the email. It says, so here's a conversation we just had. He said, after Thanksgiving, he's going to get serious about weight loss. I said, why after the holiday? Why not start and that be a cheat day? He said, because when I decide to do it, I get strict with myself and do it all the way. Okay, pause right there. That whole conversation up to that point, he just acknowledged, I heard you. You matter. I listened to what you said, and I'm going to make a plan to start getting myself healthy. All of those things.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Here's the response. I said, I know, and that's what makes me hurt so damn, or makes me so damn hurt and angry. When you want to do something, anything, you will dedicate yourself and look into every way to get it done. Yet you've never done that to fight for me or us. You just blew everything he said. Remember that thing about practice and you got to win the first game before you can get to the championship? You just got to the first game and freaking spiked the ball and walked off the field. You didn't even try. You just got rid of it. It's gone. He has lost, period. He just gave you what you wanted. You were heard. Your opinion mattered. He's giving you what you want by telling you, I will take steps to get healthy, to be there for you and his kids. That's the whole premise. And in a matter of one sentence, but you'll do this for that, but not for me. He's doing it for you. He's doing what you're asking him to do, but because it is not, he's not starting today, which is your time frame, not his. By the way, not your decision. Did you, what you could have done, because I'm looking at this from a person who needs words of affirmation. I, as a person who needs words of affirmation, just came to you and said, or we'll flip it because that was your, if you came to me and said, this is what I'm going to do. And instead of me, and this was my response, what would that do to you?
Reframe the question.
If you were to come to me and tell me you were going to, after the holidays, you're going to get on a plan, you're going to do this, you're going to do this, you're going to get healthy. After I've been bugging you about this. And my first response was, well, why aren't you doing it now? And then, you tell me that because when you do something, you lock in and you're dedicated to it. And I said, yeah, I know. That's why I'm pissed that you don't do it for me or the kids. What would that do to you and the mindset that you just came in here with?
The me before, it would have demoralized me, and it would have made me think I can't get anything right for this woman.
Bingo. So here's what I'm saying. I'm talking to Jill because I don't have Jack's side. And since Jill is bringing this to me, I'm bringing it to you because I cannot coach Jack without Jack wanting to be coached. You, however, have brought this to us. So you said you like blunt, you like honest, you work better that way. You're crushing him. You're crushing him. He just gave you an olive branch and said, okay, I heard you. I'm going to do this. I'm going to take the steps. And instead of thinking with the words of affirmation thought process, that's great, babe. What are you going to do? What are you looking at? Is there a meal plan that you're talking about? How can I help you? What can I do? All of those things just affirmed, I'm on board. I heard you. I appreciate what you're doing. I'm so happy for you. I'm proud of you. All of those things would have put into that bucket and you would have jumped. His confidence would have gone through the roof for a minute because you appreciated something he was doing and you got on board with it, which means now he's going to start looking for, what diet plan do I want to do? What is there something I'm going to do with exercise? You could have taken that and in a very subtle way over small conversation said, hey, well, why don't you take one of the boys with you on a walk around the block for part of your exercise? Get the boys out and let them run some energy off. They could run down the street while you walk around the block. You could have incorporated that need you have for him to spend time with the boys in with him wanting, him, not you, him wanting to get himself healthy. But instead, you brought it back to all about you, because why aren't you doing it now? Why can't we do it today? Look, as somebody who has done this multiple times, I can never tell Quincy, you need to do this diet and we need to start on this day. That is all his decision. It's like him telling me, you need to quit sugar. I know I need to quit sugar, but I have to quit sugar on my terms. He can't make me do it. I have to make that decision. Your husband gave you an olive branch and you snapped it in half. You made it about you. If you would have stopped and listened to what he was saying, he was trying to make it about you. For you. He's doing something you're asking him to do. There are the things that I'm seeing that's a pattern in this in the emails is instead of trying to help and encourage him to do things, it's like I'm telling him to, I'm showing him, I'm pointing out. All you're doing is reaffirming all the things he hates about himself. That's all it is. And I'm not saying all of this is your fault. What I'm saying is you came to us to coach you. If you want to make a difference in your marriage, if you really don't want to bail, if you really want to give this a fighting chance, and he's telling you he's willing to put in work, he's going to try and get healthy, he wants to get past the holidays, then help him. Help him. Encourage him. Build him up in it. Do not make it about you. This is what he needs. This is somebody who needs somebody to come alongside him and build him up. Am I saying you need to coddle him? Absolutely not. But I am saying if you're going to tell him something he's doing wrong, don't be a dick about it. Just if he's doing something and you want him to do it differently, instead of saying, "Well, why don't you do this?" Try adjusting your verbiage. What do you think about trying this way? What do you think if we went here instead? What do you think if we ate this instead of that? You're all you're doing is changing how you're saying it so that it doesn't come off as a direct hit. I mean, you've got to look at, it's not your place to fix him, but he doesn't trust you. Your words did some damage. Apology or not, your words did damage. And until he can see that you actually do love him unconditionally, that you actually do want this to work, because right now, everything you're saying negates the fact that you love him and that you want all these things, because all you're doing is shoving crap back at him that he's doing wrong, and you're feeding into that self-loathing and that depression and that all those things that are going on underneath. You're not helping it.
Let me also make the point that what Jeannie's telling you to do, Jill, is not easy because
Mm-mm.
you are so deeply hurt by his actions. His actions are what he calls freedom. He's chasing a connection. He is desperately looking for a connection, and that's why he's willing to, kind of sacrifice himself for it, because that's what he wants the most, is a connection.
Mhm.
And we see that as an unhealthy connection. I mean, we really do. I do. Let me speak for Quincy Moran. Pornography is an unhealthy connection. It's unrealistic.
But it's also unconditional. And it doesn't point out your flaws.
That's fair. That's fair. Those things are true. But it also desensitizes you. It sets unrealistic expectations. All those things that you talk about in the emails that are legitimate and they hurt you, Jill, it's very true. But he's out seeking those things because he's not getting that from you. And you are out doing all the things
that you need him to do for you.
Because he's not doing that for you.
So here's
somebody's got to be first.
That's what I was going to say. Rita put it to us like this. When Quincy and I struggled with, when we were going through the beginning of this, our sex life sucked because autism, not sleeping, different things, various things. But the core of it was our needs weren't being met. And so for me, if my needs aren't being met, I don't want intimate connection. There's no connection. This is just sex.
If I feel rejected, I don't want to connect with you.
Exactly. So Rita brought it to both of us and said, so who's going to give? Because if you start filling his love tank, so to speak, and he starts filling what happens is, as I start doing things for Quincy wants to do things for me. When Quincy does things for me, I want to have an intimate connection with him. I want that connection between us. It's something that I start to desire more because it's the next level of where we're going and what we're trying to achieve. But if you're not meeting my needs and then you come to me and say, hey, you wanna? No. Why would I? I can lay there and take it, but that's not going to give us, sure, we'll both get off. Okay, cool. Maybe. But there's no real intimate connection or love expressed. There is a very different feel when you know before you even go to bed with that person, I matter, I'm important, I'm valued, I'm loved, I'm special. That all feeds into how your sex life is. And it also leads into how it communicates. Because anybody can get a quickie in. That's cool. But a quickie is just sex. It's just sex.
It can be hard to get off, during a quickie if you're hurt by the other person emotionally.
Well, for men, it can be hard to get an erection if you're emotionally hurt. It can, for women, and this is probably being a little more graphic than you need, but our body will not lubricate properly. If our mind is not in it, the physical touch won't matter because my brain has to be connected to what's happening. And if I'm emotionally stuck or pissed, that's very hard for me to get into that place and let those things go to enjoy what's happening. Those are so the reason I'm saying this is, like I said, you came to us for help. Jack has not been involved yet. I'm begging you, if he wants to talk, if he wants to get his part out there, Quincy and I are more than happy and more than willing. Quincy, I'm sure, could talk a lot to what he's going through as far as the weight and the personal loathing and the things that he's struggling with to try to get healthy. I think Quincy would be an excellent coach for that.
I suggest a phone call between the four of us. I think that would
I do too.
Provide some context.
But what I'm saying, and this is why I'm saying this. If you want this to change, and I'm going to be really blunt, stop bitching. Stop bitching at him. Stop pointing out his flaws. Stop pointing out what he's not doing right and all the things that are pissing you off and making you hurt. Change how you do things and how you say them. And watch and see if he doesn't start to change a little bit.
Well, and that's something that I really wanted to talk about. So I'm glad you talked about that, because it won't always be the way it is.
No, he will shift. Once he sees that you're investing and that you're not throwing out the possibility of leaving and that you're not constantly pointing out the bad. Marriage is not supposed to be all the bad stuff.
Right.
You're not supposed to just focus on all the bad stuff. It is never going to be 100% perfect. It might be perfect for you. It is not going to be perfect.
Yeah. And here's what I want to say is that in the beginning, with someone who is beat down, you're both beat down. Okay. So understand that I'm just talking about his situation right now. Someone who's beat down that has words of affirmation. This is just experience talking. This is not, you know, anything I've read in a book. Your resiliency is at zero. And without resiliency, you can't take direct truth. Everything you hear, you take personally. So anytime you hear any critical feedback, we will say,
I hate that word. That
you,
point made.
anytime you get any of that, it's like a reinforcement of how bad you're losing and why you don't add up and why you don't and how you're not good enough. But what's true is that when you begin to redefine yourself and you start to build trust within yourself, resiliency is one of the things that starts to come back. You start to rebuild it, like going to the gym and pumping your bicep. When you start, it's
It
not impressive.
hurts.
It hurts to move. You don't want to do it again. But the more you do it, the more resilient you become. It still hurts, but you start to build a muscle there. And after time, you get stronger.
What's funny is you actually start to crave that little bit of hurt because that's what's telling you you're growing and you're doing something great for your body. It's really weird how that works, but it's true.
Another great point, like we didn't put this together, but it's working out quite well. What that also tells you is when there are uncomfortable situations, I now lean towards those as opposed to leaning away because it teaches me something about myself.
Mhm.
And the only way to understand or to identify whether you're becoming more resilient is to have situations that question your resiliency. I'm not saying go to look for them. Life is going to present you with plenty of opportunities. But that's the only way that you can grade where am I and do I need to continue building my resiliency? Because it'll come to a point where, Jill, you can give him direct feedback because you guys will get to a point where you trust one another and you say, okay, do I have permission? And once you get permission, you don't get disrespectful. But once you have permission, then you can speak directly. But right now, the both of you are damaged. You're both damaged. And so he's defeated. You're defeated. You're desperate. That's why you're throwing these Hail Marys out there. Say, help me with this. Or why don't you go do this? And maybe you'll feel better about that. I mean, that's a whole lot
There's
of inside
there's
discussion, but
there's a way, something that Rita taught me, and it's kind of funny because it helps my writing, is to, before you say it, especially if you're thinking about having a conversation about with him about something serious, before you say it, run it through your head. Run it through your head. How can I say this where it's not going to be hurtful? As we go through and we keep moving through the emails and talking with you, you will learn rules of engagement. You will learn soft place to land. Right now, what you're learning is, what are my love languages? What do they look like to me? What does that mean to me? And what do I need? And then you're going to learn soft place to land. That's what you're developing, because as you start to encourage each other and do these things for each other and use the love languages, you will develop a trust, which now you can have a soft place to land and say, okay, I need to talk to you about something and I need you to listen and not judge, not talk, not nothing. But until you get to the place where you guys can even speak to each other without looking at it through the filter of what you're not getting, you will not be able to develop a soft place to land. You're still coming in with, both of you are still coming in this with all weapons armed and all shields up. We have to get you past that place and to a point of being able to understand both of you have the same goal. You both want to feel loved. You both want to feel heard. You both want to feel important. You both want to be a priority. You both want this marriage. What are you willing to give for it? What are you willing to do? Because that means at some point, one or both of you is going to have to fall on the sword and sacrifice some things. And that means you might have to give up your own needs for a minute to meet someone else's, and then keep giving until eventually they start giving back. That's usually how it happens. That's how it was for us. It was like, make it intentional. Make it something that you actually practice daily. And when you screw it up, because you will. You will. I did it. I would say something and I could tell by the look on Quincy's face that was not the right way to say that. And I would have to backtrack and say, okay, wait, I'm sorry. It's not what I said. It's not what I meant. How about this? When you guys get to a place where you can trust each other with conversation, then you'll be allowed to say it ugly. You are not there yet. This is still, because I know you're listening to the other episodes and you're going back through the catalog, which is great. But right now, I just want you to stick with where we're at. Start here. Learn how to talk to each other and how to love each other. Period. That's it. That's all I want you to do.
It's important that you know also that in life we carry around a metaphorical bag. And there's this dude named Graham Cook. He's a guy I love to listen to him speak. I haven't been able to find, this particular episode where he was speaking, but he talks about the difference between baggage and luggage. And he kind of gives you this example. Pretend, think in your imagination that you are going on a great vacation to Orlando, Florida. That's where Disney World is, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're going to Orlando, Florida for a 2-week vacation. And you open your suitcase, you take a step back, and you allow your worst enemy to pack it. You zip it up, you take it, you get to sunny Orlando, and all you have is cold weather gear, like you're going skiing.
Somebody wants you to be miserable.
How well is that going to work for you? That's what baggage is in your life. That's other people's actions, hurts, etc. in your life that you are carrying around. Conversely, luggage is something you pack for yourself. And the beauty with luggage is you don't pack the suitcase full. You leave room for gifts along the way. So, what do you want? Do you know that you are carrying baggage around? The both of you, Jack and Jill, Quincy and Jeannie. There are still areas of baggage in your suitcase. Now, we don't know what we don't know, and we can't address it until we know. But right now in your relationship, you need to identify the baggage, and you need to start to clean it out and replace it with the luggage concept of packing for a trip with anticipation of the great things you are going to do, and leave room for gifts along the way. And those will be new experiences, new connections, new adventures you get to have together. But you don't want your worst enemy to pack your bags for you to go on vacation. You want to do that. So that's where we are. Now, what did I promise you? I promised you that we wanted to give you some practical tools.
I have homework for her when you're done.
And then Jeannie's going to give you some homework. Used to always love it when Coach Rita gave us homework.
It helps, believe it or not.
It does help. It does help. And so does a phone call.
As long as your name is not Hunter Wayne Moran and you don't say it as homework and you say practice, you're good.
All right. So about an hour and 40 minutes into this conversation, now it's time for some practical tools. And this is not a promotion for a guide to a great marriage. It is just what we have most recently come up with that would be our best 5 pieces of advice. Now, you could look back, like Jeannie said, you're going through the catalog. There is there is a systematic approach to this, which was my approach to transforming my life. I had to figure it out. But we layer things on top of one another. So you'll hear us talk about something today, and for us, it's our own language.
Mhm.
Like, we know what it is. We know the steps it took to get there. That's why there's a valuable catalog behind us of over 300 episodes, and we've done series in many of these. But here it is. Before you get the homework, I hope you have something to log what I'm about to tell you. Okay. So, number one, and I think you and Jack could both answer this question, and that's what we're helping you reconcile. Number one thing to establish is, would my spouse hurt me emotionally on purpose? For both of you, I think right now the answer is yes. If I'm wrong, please have grace and mercy and forgive me. But it's what I pick up based on what we are reading. All right. So with that, number one, we want to be able to go like where to start. That is where we're beginning here. But for the listener that's not Jack and Jill, where do I start? And that's it here. So we're starting with the love languages. You have identified those things. And the reason we say that is, what we've kind of alluded to in this is, you need to understand how your spouse receives love. And you don't give your spouse love in the way you receive it. You give your spouse love in the way he or she receives it, or you're going to feel rejected.
You have to remember that their love language is how they filter things, because it's what they're most looking for in this life, are those things in any relationship. That's what they're looking for. That's what feeds them. That's what builds them. But it's one filter that they can look from either side. So it's important to know that.
And don't be disillusioned that we've been together so long, my spouse should just know. Nope.
He don't think like you. Episode you need to find.
Stop right there. I have a principle that I developed that I made Jeannie aware of, and because I coached football for almost a decade, where it's like, give me the playbook.
Yeah.
And I'm going to do these things on purpose, whether I want to or not, because it matters to you. And you may think, well, you're only doing X, Y, or Z because I told you I wanted it. Good. It's being done. There's an intention behind it. There's a motivation behind it. Do those things. The more you do them, the more it becomes a part of you. And the more you want to do them, because it gets reciprocated. So yes, give me the freaking playbook. Number two, communication. Wildly overused, or a very rabbit hole type topic. It goes very deep. So for us, we put about 5 things together. We put 5 things together that talk about communication in this secondary piece. And it is: listen authentically, the principle of what I hear you say. The principle number 3 is say it ugly, clean it up. Number 4, understanding silent expectations. These are things you want your spouse to do, but you are not communicating them. And then they're not doing them, so you are holding a grudge against your spouse when your spouse had no idea that this is what you wanted. And then number 5, it goes right in line with baggage. That is number 5. I forgot in the moment that that's what it was, but you have an understanding of what that is. Now, number 3, have the discussion about sex expectations. What are your expectations around sex? This is going to help you. Please go in sequential order in these top 5. Please do not go out of order. I'm trying to give you a framework here, or a roadmap. So you'll get into the discussion of access versus initiating. That's going to be It's going to be very important. Number 4, reestablish what your house rules are, what your core values are, what your family values are. Because ultimately, when you get out of line, or he gets out of line, or the kids get out of line, or you have questions, you look back at your family values and you say, do my actions live up to that standard? Now nobody's the bad guy. You need to correct your actions and live according to the family values and the standards. You don't have those. You don't have those right now. Because if you did, and the kids wanted to play, you would say, do I need to do what's comfortable and easy? Or do I need to do what's right? Number 4 for us, if you know what's right, do it. So, what is right in the moment? I mean, your children are not.
They're going to stay small for long.
They're not. It goes by so fast. And Jill, you have a daughter who's an adult. You know this already. But your kids are not an annoyance, just lurking out there, getting in the way of what you want to do. You need to be intentional. You are teaching them, husband and wife, you are teaching them what adults look like. You are teaching, as a father, you are teaching your sons what a husband looks like, what a man looks like, what a father figure looks like. And they're going to go out and do what you do. They're not going to go do what you say, especially when your actions don't match your words. It's vitally important that you set a standard for yourself. And we talked about this. I talked about this in the first episode. You have no standard for your life. That's where the house rules and the family values come into account. It's imperative that you guys develop this together because it's going to set the course for what direction you want. Having kids, it is a lot of pressure, but it is a privilege in this life to have kids. It's a privilege in this life to have this pressure. It is a badge of honor as a parent. Your kids are not an annoyance or a nuisance that need to leave you alone. Sometimes they are. Okay?
After 10 p.m.
But that is contextual. And no, your life should not be all about your kids because you have to remember that you're married, but you need to do some foundational things and be intentional about how you interact with your children. Are you having family meetings, husband? Are you sitting your entire family down and talking to them about life, about culture, about future? Are you painting the vision of what's to come for this family or not? And if you're not, get your freaking tail in gear. Your future is right there in front of you. Sorry, we hear Hunter in the background.
Autism strikes again.
He's likely telling me to shut up, and that's okay.
Sorry,
He doesn't always like the house rules either, but it's a standard. And then number 5, and look, I'm going to go through this real quick for you on this episode. Here's our family values. Here's 10 keys to a great life. Number 1, follow the rules and instructions. Very important when you're young and you're growing up that you understand what the rules and the instructions are so that you have the framework within your house. You know what to do. Very important. Number 2, have a good attitude. Jack and Jill, do you have a good attitude right now? Probably not, because you're beaten and you're damaged and you're desperate for things to change. Be kind to everybody, except Auburn fans. Number 4, if you know what's right, do it. Number 5, work hard every single day. And I don't just mean at work. I mean, in all facets of who you are. Life is so short. If you're lucky, you get today and you might get tomorrow. When they collect up, maybe you get 70 or 80 years or 90 years. It goes by too fast. It goes by too fast to live with a bunch of regrets. Number 6, improve yourself. And as Hunter would say, every single day. Number 7, have an attitude of gratitude. What are you grateful for? Are you focused on any of the things that are making you grateful, or are you focused on the things that you don't have? Are you focused on the negatives in your life? Because if you are reproducing whatever you're focused on. Number 8 is I care. Do you care for the people in your life? Do you care for yourself? Do you care for others? Number 9, no whining. I'm not saying you can't take a minute to vent. I can't say people don't have a bad day. But if you're having 857 bad days in a row, you're the problem. And the beauty is you can solve it. Number 10, this is very important, foundational. Maybe it's number 1, but it caps off 10 keys to a great life. It's live, love, forgive on purpose. Do it on purpose. It's part of my philosophy that says live on purpose for a purpose. Many people don't understand that, but hang around me a little while and you'll start to understand it. You need to live this life on purpose. You need to be intentional with every facet of your life. It doesn't mean you can't be spontaneous, but you need to be intentional. Okay. There was another piece of the email. Do you want to get to that one, or are you good with what you got, or you want to get to homework?
Let's get to homework and then we can break this into another episode because I'm pretty sure once she gets through this one, there's going to be more to come. And that will probably help us put into perspective some of the other things. And I don't want to overwhelm.
Hey, Jill, real quick. I'm talking directly to you. It's on the video. Looking right at you. Okay. Look into the whatever device you're using. Look into it, please. First thing I want to say is thank you. I said this in my original email, but thank you for reaching out. Thank you for wanting to better your relationship and your life. Thank you for having the courage to do this. It's worth it. It's worth it. And I know it sucks right now, and it sucked for a long time. But it's important that you know that I appreciate you. Your kids and your family will appreciate you for being the one to step out and to do this. So you have my respect. You have my appreciation. And it matters the world to me that you're fighting for your family. I come from a broken home. My parents didn't keep fighting. They gave up. They went their separate ways. Many good things came out of it after we got on with life that I wouldn't want to change. And I hate it for them. And it's our endeavor for that not to ever be us, but not to just endure this relationship, but to create something that thrives and is enjoyable and that we love. So here's Jeannie with your homework.
Okay, first, before you can do this homework, you need to make a decision. Do you want this marriage to work? Because you've put an ultimatum out and you've already said after the holidays, you're going to put together a plan for you to vacate. So if that is still the plan, homework's not going to matter. If you are willing to put in the work and try, first thing I want you to do is go to Jack and tell him you are taking that off the table, that you are not going to leave, provided the two of you put in some serious work to try and fix this marriage. Now, your homework. I want you to sit down with Jack and discuss his plans for getting healthy. And I want you to do it with enthusiasm. And I want you to do it from a perspective of how can you help him? Is it a certain meal plan that he's going to be doing? Is there something you could help him look on Pinterest for different recipes? Is there something I want you involved, but I do not want you to take over? He needs to choose what he's doing, and your job is to help, support, encourage.
Can I say it this way? This is a great principle. Okay. Don't try to fix Jack. Simply ask, how can I help? Because he may say the best thing you can do to help me is to leave me alone and let me do this.
And that's fair.
And that's okay. But the truth is it's like you're already a fixer. You want to fix things. You want things to get done, and you'll get right in the middle of it. I can tell you'll just go do it.
But for some people, that looks like you're trying to control and micromanage.
For him, it's like, how can I help? And then do this. And it might
Listen,
be, he might be the
intentional.
kind of guy that's like in the moment, in his current state of mind, like, I don't need your help. I'm okay. I will always be okay. That might be inside joke, but not inside. That might be what he does, but he might have the opportunity to go back and think about it and then say, you can help me this way.
This is how I would do it, and this is how I did it with Quincy. How can I help? Do you need me to help with, figuring out your meals? Do you need me to help with the grocery shopping? Would you like to go with me to do the grocery shopping so that we can kind of balance the budget with it? This also kind of hits on your money on the card situation. What I'm saying is actively be involved, but do not take over. This is his thing. You are there to encourage and build. That's it. He's trying to do something. He's trying to acknowledge that he's heard you and he's willing to do the first steps. All I'm asking you to do, gently, ask if you can take the steps with him. What can you do?
Should she start with acknowledging, hey, I want to come back to you and I want to apologize. I want to acknowledge.
That's why I said take the offer off the table, because that was the end of that conversation. I want you to take the offer off the table that says you're leaving. If you're willing to do this, I want you to give yourself time, give him time. This is not something that's going to change in 2 weeks. This is something that's going to take some time to rebuild trust. But you cannot throw out at any given moment, well, then I'm just going to go, or I'm going to take the kids, or if we're not that important. You've got to stop doing those. You've got to stop doing those, because if you are genuinely going to try to repair this, for me, that would be you manipulating me. Because if I don't do this, you're going to leave. And then all that does is put pressure on me that if it's not perfect, if I'm not doing it exactly the way you want me to, you're not going to give me any leeway to screw up or fail. And I hate to break it to you, but he's going to screw up and he's going to fail because he's learning to trust himself again.
Mm-hmm.
This is a process, but you've got to give a little bit. You've got to. And this is the simplest thing I can think for you to start. I know the porn addiction and all that stuff it's a huge thing. I know that. I am asking you, drop it. Just for a little bit, drop it. Focus on something that you can change and impact. And that is, he made a decision to do something. How can I help? What can I do? And ask. And then the other side of that is, as he's doing it, check in. How'd you do today? How do you feel? Do you need anything? Can I help with anything? They're very simple questions, but I am telling you, over the course of time, they make a huge impact. Quincy and I still, to this day, did it today. He was frustrated about something. I know he's frustrated about something. It's not, I don't know if it's me. I don't know what it is. But instead of going, oh, your attitude sucks, I was very simply said, can I help you not be frustrated? Is there something I can do? Is there something you need to talk through? I'm not blaming myself. I'm not blaming anyone else. I'm not nailing him for him having a crap attitude. I'm asking, can I help? It completely changed the dynamic in the conversation because I'm not accusing him. I'm not letting my own mind decide what's going on with him and why he's got this issue. And I'm not automatically trying to fix the situation. If he says, if you could do this, this would really help me, it would take a little bit off my plate, then that's my answer. Like today, he said, no, I have some things that I need to work through. I've got some decisions I need to make. They're not things you can help me with. But thank you for asking me. That's it. It's that simple. But you have to build that. Oh, there goes autism. So my homework for you is take the deal off the table and tell him, I want to give this a chance. I want us to actively try together to fix this. And then I want you to see how you can help him. And then your other part of the homework is I want you to not mention the addiction at all. I do not want you to touch on the topic for at least a week. And don't mention it again until you listen to another episode or we talk to you. Reason being, if you are not constantly poking at something that he is already poking at himself for, chances are he might be a little more open to discuss things as you get a little more comfortable. But as long as you're still jabbing him, he's not going to listen to any of your help for his diet. He's not going to listen to anything that you put out that's a good thing. The minute you hit with, why don't you ever, you never, you always, everything good you've done, gone. You're trying to build trust, not break it. So I need you to very politely and as bluntly as I can say this, shut up. Focus on the things that he's willing to work on. Focus on the things for yourself that you are willing to work on, meaning the way you talk. Purposely hear yourself before you say to him what it is you're going to say. How would I hear this out of the filter of words of affirmation, good or bad? And if it's not going to come off as something that is helpful, because he doesn't do blunt like you do. We've established this. Blunt, straightforward, to the point. He doesn't take it that way. He takes it as a criticism. He takes it as you're cutting him down and you're just adding on to his own self crap that he's got going on. Stop it. Try to think of a way to say it where you can still get the point across, but it's not a straightforward, blunt dig. And it might take 2 or 3 times going around in a conversation to get your point across.
Or more.
But the point is you're trying to do it in a manner that won't hurt him. And that's what he needs to know, is that you are not trying to hurt him. They don't think like we do. They don't communicate the way that we do. They don't internalize emotion like we do. I don't process emotion the same way Quincy does. I, for a long time, didn't want to process emotion, whereas my husband was a very emotional person. We've had to work years to find a balance for both of us.
Yep.
Individually and together. You have to keep that in mind because you're coming at him from what you would want. It doesn't work. He doesn't hear it the way that you hear it. He doesn't, like for Quincy, if you were to tell Quincy, you need to stop drinking coffee, it's bad for your health, and it's doing this, this, and this to your heart. Quincy could make a decision right there on the spot and quit. Cold turkey. Done. If this is what needs to happen, it's over. Me, girl, I'm still trying to quit sugar. And we've been at this for 25 years. I have to process through things. I have things that I have to think about it for a while. I have to maybe consider the pros and cons to it. Sometimes it's just, I've got to get out. I have to process the emotion of it because some things might piss me off. And it's not his fault. It's just something that makes me angry because it means I have to change. I don't like change. I don't like things that are uncomfortable. I don't like peopling. I don't like crowds. But I had to learn to process through it and do it. But he had to give me the space to process through it. I'll give you an example. Our daughter came home. She hadn't been living with us for a while. There was some contention between me and her when she left. The day before she came home, I was an a-hole from the moment I woke up.
Yeah, you were.
And it wasn't anybody's fault. I was just frustrated because I didn't know what to expect. I was dealing with emotions that hadn't been sorted before she left. And here she is coming back into the house and I'm supposed to just be okay. And I wasn't okay. So Quincy came in to talk to me. I snapped at him. We had a bit of an argument. Now, normally, 15 years ago, Quincy would have snapped back. That would have been okay, fine. You want to be a butthead? I'm going to be a butthead. Instead, he just told me, I'm going to let you figure out whatever this is. I'll give you a minute. And he left, which pissed me off even more. But it also, for me, was the switch that said, okay, that was wicked. That wasn't your fault. I'm not mad at you. I'm not frustrated at you. And I was just an asshole to you. That's not okay. So we got back to a conversation a few minutes later, and I explained, I'm not mad at you. I'm sorry for acting this way. I'm processing through this. This is what's going on. And then here's the kicker. This is the part that you learn as you guys go through this. I had to then say, will you please, if you see me having this struggle, if I'm starting to get angry, if I'm starting to do this or that, and you notice it, please pull me aside and let me know. I give you permission to tell me. If your husband has not given you permission to tell him what he's doing wrong and to tell him bluntly, don't. Find a way to say it that is not so blunt, that is not going to go for the jugular. You need to find a way to talk nicer in a way that will help him see it rather than shoving it in his face.
I used to like repeat this phrase to Jeannie. I don't even know if she ever really knew the point I was trying to get across. But it's like, we're home team. Don't forget, we are home team. I used to say it a lot because, it's like we're not
against each other.
We're here to fight for one another, not with one another. It doesn't mean you're not going to have any arguments. So please don't misconstrue that. But we stopped, to the best of our ability, fighting to be right. And we started fighting for what is right in our relationship. And we don't get it perfectly. We don't get it perfect all the time. But the intention and the motivation to do what's right is there.
So here's the other part of the homework. And this part's pretty easy. Anything that he does that is a good thing. I don't care if it's thanking him. Thank you that you brought home a paycheck, that you went to work today. I tell Quincy all the time, mostly it's because I love my car. I appreciate you. Thank you for going to work so I could have my car. I love my car. It sounds silly. It might sound cheesy to you, but you know what? They're working their butt off to bring home a paycheck. I don't care what job it is. I'm not the one working that job. He is. And I appreciate the fact that he is going to that job. What I want you to do is anything that he does that is a positive, and you might have to look hard because you're in that hurt space. I want you to find a way to affirm it. Thank him for it. Point it out. It was really great the way that you talked to our son about this. It was really great the way that you did this. I really appreciate, I'm telling you, I know it's hard. I know it's hard. Our first 10 years were so freaking difficult. We got to the point where we had a conversation in the bathroom and said, so are we doing this or are we calling it quits? What are we going to do? And we got married with the non-negotiable, divorce is not an option. And here we were 10 years later. Are you ready to walk away? Because this is crap. Now you can see we had 10 years of garbage to dig through, and it's taken us 15 years after that, and we still screw it up. So it's not something that's just going to get perfect, but as you start to appreciate and affirm things for him, and you start to focus yourself on the good things, it will be a little easier. One, you're going to build him up, which is going to make him feel great, which is going to help you because he's not going to be seeking it anywhere else because you're giving him what he needs. Two, you're so focused in your emails on all the shit that's going wrong and all the bad stuff and all the things that you cannot stand. What's good? What are your kids seeing? Because you're pointing things out to your husband. What are they seeing from you? Can you point out something good? Find it. Those are the things you've got to focus on. Because if you don't, you're going to stay negative, and that's not going to help you build. So, long conversation to say two things. Help him with his diet, ask him how you can help him and encourage him. And then I want you to focus on the good things and give him affirmation and appreciation for the good things that you do find. See if that doesn't change something, anything.
Yeah. And in full disclosure, I hope he can take the time to listen to this episode because, brother, we're telling her to do this on purpose. And there is an ulterior motive, and that is to start to build you up. So any compliments that you are receiving from a words of affirmation perspective, I'm asking you to receive them as authentic and understand the motivation and the intention behind them. And I know it's hard because you guys don't trust each other right now. But those times are going to change. Things are going to get better.
Like I told her, though, it's practice. You don't just learn to start looking at the good when you've been stuck in hurt for so long.
That's right.
You have to force yourself to really look for. And sometimes it might be as simple as when we did the exercise on give me 5 things you love about yourself. Dude, I completely stumped. Because what do I love about myself? And it took me days to sit there and think about what do I like, because I was so inundated by things I don't like about myself.
Yeah.
The things that I wish I could fix about myself, that it took me several days to come up with, what do you love about yourself? It's the same process here. You guys have been hurt so much for so long. This is going to take time. And it's going to take practice. It's going to be like building a muscle. It's just going to take time and practice and repetition. And it's not that it's coming out of a place of, I'm doing it because I have to do it because it's homework. You are reteaching yourself to have a different perspective of your situation, of your spouse, of your life in general. Give yourself some grace.
Do that. And you, the listener, who's not Jack or Jill, use the email. Quincy@mvsmpodcast.com. And like Jeannie said, if you don't want to email me, fine, be that way. But there's Jeannie, JEANNE, at mvsmpodcast.com. Use either one of them. I'm good with it. And then go check out quincymoran.com. There is, I'm telling you what, over the next 2 years, I'm expecting this platform and our group to absolutely explode in a great way. We are going to make a tremendous difference in men's lives, women's lives, family life, and culture. And you're a part of it. So when you go to quincymoran.com, that's how you can support this program by grabbing some of our clothes. Just go to apparel, put it on, wear it in public, wear it to the gym, wear it when you travel, wear it out and about, and go spread the message because we are on the move. Let's go get after it. That is all for this episode of Man vs. Marriage. She is Jeannie Moran. I am Quincy Moran, and this is Man vs. Marriage, the podcast.